It starts at 11:47 p.m., not with a crash, not with something dramatic, with a pain in your side that has been there since Tuesday and is now loud enough that you can't sleep through it anymore. You Google it first. Everyone does. You read 4 articles. 2 say it's nothing. 1 says appendix. You close the tab. You sit on the edge of your bed for 11 minutes deciding if this is real. It is. You drive yourself. There is nobody to call at this hour who wouldn't make it worse. You park in the lot and walk through the sliding doors, and the fluorescent light hits you like something you weren't ready for. Bright, flat, permanent. The woman at the front desk has a lanyard and a look that has seen everything. She asks your name, your date of birth, your insurance. You say the word uninsured the way you'd confess something. Her expression doesn't change. She hands you a clipboard. You sit in a plastic chair the color of old mustard and you fill out the form. There is a question on page 2 that asks for your primary care physician. You leave it blank. You haven't had one since you aged off your parents' plan at 26. You are 29. The waiting room is a specific kind of honest. Nobody here is performing. The man across from you is holding a towel to his hand. The woman in the corner has a child on her lap who stopped crying 20 minutes ago out of exhaustion, not comfort. An old man in a wool coat sits perfectly still like he has been here before and knows that moving doesn't help. You wait 2 hours and 14 minutes. When they call your name, the nurse asks your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10. You say 6. You mean 8. You have been taught your whole life not to complain too loudly in rooms like this. They take your blood. They take your blood pressure. They put you in a hallway on a gurney because there are no rooms. The hallway smells like antiseptic and something older underneath it. A doctor appears for 4 minutes. He orders a CT scan. He disappears. You stare at the ceiling tiles and do the math you have been avoiding since the parking lot. The CT scan alone is $3,000 without insurance. The ER visit fee is $1,500 before anyone touches you. The blood work, the IV they just put in your arm. The doctor you saw for 4 minutes who will bill you separately from the hospital as if he is a contractor who happened to be passing through. You don't know the final number yet. Nobody tells you the final number. Not here, not tonight. The bill arrives in 6 to 8 weeks in a white envelope you will recognize before you open it. You lie in the hallway and feel something that isn't fear exactly. It's the specific exhaustion of being sick in a country where being sick costs more than being well. The results come back, not your appendix. Something manageable. They give you a prescription and discharge instructions printed on paper still warm from the printer. The nurse says follow up with your primary care physician within 2 weeks. You fold the paper. You don't say anything. You walk out through the sliding doors at 4:22 a.m. The parking lot is cold. Your car is the only one left in your row. You sit in the driver's seat for a minute before turning the key. At level 1, the emergency room is not a safety net. It is a debt generator wearing a medical coat. You are not a patient here. You are an account that hasn't been opened yet. You qualify. You didn't always know that. You found out from a coworker who mentioned it like it was obvious, like everyone knew. You applied on a Tuesday night on your phone. The form took 40 minutes. The approval took 11 days. The card came in a plain envelope that looked like junk mail. Tonight, the pain is different. Chest this time. Not sharp, just present. Heavy in a way that has no name. You walk in and hand them the card. The expression at the desk is practiced neutrality. Not warm, not cold. Processed. The waiting room is the same room. Same chairs. Same light. The man with the towel has been replaced by a different man with a different problem, but the same posture. Shoulders forward, eyes down. The waiting room posture of people who have learned that making yourself smaller makes the wait feel shorter. You wait 2 hours and 40 minutes, longer than last time. Not because you matter less, because the system has calculated that you cost less per minute of delay. The nurse is kind, genuinely kind, the kind that comes from doing this job long enough to see through the paperwork to the person. She asks your pain level. You say 7. You mean 7. You stopped rounding down sometime in the last year. They run an EKG. They run blood work. They put you in a room this time. Actual room. Thin curtain for a wall. The sound of the next patient's conversation fully audible, but a room. The doctor comes in for 6 minutes. She explains what they're looking at. She uses words you have to Google quietly under the blanket while she's still talking. The results come back. Stress-related. She says that twice and looks at you both times like she's saying something beyond the diagnosis. They give you a referral, a cardiologist. She writes the name on a card. You look at the card in the car. The cardiologist does not accept Medicaid. You find this out when you call the next morning. The receptionist is not unkind about it. She is just accurate. He doesn't accept it. She can refer you to someone who does. The wait for that someone is 11 weeks. You put the card in the junk drawer. You take the ibuprofen they gave you. You go back to work on Thursday. Medicaid gets you through the door. It does not get you through the system. The door and the system are two different buildings. $180 a month out of your paycheck, $2,000 deductible, 80/20th split after that. You read the summary of benefits once when you enrolled and understood approximately half of it. You come in tonight with a laceration, your hand, a kitchen accident, something requiring stitches, clear enough to warrant coming, not dramatic enough to feel justified about it. You hand over your insurance card. The check-in is faster, not fast, faster. A different quality of desk interaction. Not warmth exactly, but a kind of recognition, like you're speaking a language they understand. You wait 1 hour and 20 minutes. A nurse practitioner handles the stitches. She is efficient. 6 stitches. Clean. Explained as she goes. She asks if you have any allergies. She checks the chart before you answer, which means the chart matters here. You leave at 1:15 a.m. with discharge instructions and a follow-up date. The bill comes 3 weeks later. The ER visit hit your deductible, $1,400 after the insurance adjustment. You didn't know there would be an adjustment. You thought you were paying a flat rate. You call the billing department. You are on hold for 22 minutes. A woman explains the explanation of benefits. You take notes on a paper towel because you can't find a pen. You understand about 60% of what she says. You set up a payment plan. $85 a month for 18 months. It is manageable. Barely, but manageable. Basic insurance is not protection. It is a discount applied to a number you still cannot fully afford. The discount is real. So is the bill. $90 a month, $500 deductible. The card is the same size as every other card, but feels different in your hand because of what it represents. Tonight, your daughter has a fever of 104. She is 4 years old. You don't wait until midnight to decide. You go at 9 p.m. while it's still tonight. You check in. They take her back within 20 minutes, not because of the card, because of the fever number. But the card means the room has a door. The room has a television mounted on the wall playing a cartoon she has already fallen asleep to. The pediatric nurse is gentle in a way that is specific to pediatric nurses. She explains everything to your daughter first and to you second. She asks her what her stuffed animal's name is. Your daughter says Gerald. The nurse says Gerald looks like a strong bear. Your daughter smiles for the first time in 6 hours. The doctor comes in within 30 minutes. He sits down. He does not stand in the doorway. He sits in the chair next to the bed and talks to you at eye level. He explains what he thinks, what he is ruling out, and what happens next in that order. Viral, rest, fluids. Follow up if the fever persists past 72 hours. You leave at 11:30. You carry your daughter to the car. She is already asleep. The bill comes later, $80 after insurance. You pay it the day it arrives. You think about the version of you 3 years ago, the one who waited until 2 a.m. to decide, the one who did the math in the parking lot. Good insurance doesn't change the medicine. It changes the moment before the medicine. It changes whether you hesitate. You pay nothing per month. The company covers it. You found this out during orientation and read the sentence 3 times. Tonight, it's you. Lower back pain that crossed a line somewhere around 8 p.m. You know your body well enough now to know when something needs attention. You check in. They ask for your card and your ID. The interaction takes 90 seconds. You wait 40 minutes. The room is a room with a door that closes. Not a curtain, a door. The doctor comes in and stays for 15 minutes. He asks about your history. He has your records pulled before he enters because your primary care physician is in the same system. He already knows about the incident 3 years ago. He doesn't have to ask you to start from the beginning. That continuity, that one thing. Knowing you don't have to explain yourself from zero. It changes the quality of the entire visit in a way you couldn't have named at level 1. They do an MRI. The results come back before you leave. Herniated disc. Manageable. A referral made before discharge to a specialist who accepts your insurance and has an appointment available in 9 days. 9 days. Not 11 weeks. 9 days. You drive home at 2 a.m. with a diagnosis, a referral, a prescription, and a follow-up already scheduled. The full loop. Closed in one night. The bill will be $0. You know this before it arrives. Premium insurance doesn't get you better care. It gets you complete care. The difference between those two things is the distance between a question answered and a question that follows you home. Your company has a concierge health line, a number you can call at any hour. A nurse answers, an actual nurse, not a recording, not a menu. Tonight, you call it first, before you go anywhere. She asks your symptoms. She asks follow-up questions. She says she's going to connect you directly with the on-call physician at the hospital. She stays on the line while the transfer happens. The physician asks 3 questions and tells you to come in. He says he'll notify the department. You arrive. They are expecting you. A staff member meets you at the entrance, not the waiting room. The entrance. She walks you back. You see the waiting room from a different angle as you pass it. The same chairs, the same light, the same posture of people who have learned that waiting is part of it. From this angle, the waiting room looks like a different country. You are seen immediately. The team is assembled. Nobody is rushing, but everything is moving. There is an efficiency here that has nothing to do with urgency and everything to do with preparation. You think about the same hospital at level 1, same building, same sliding doors, same ceiling tiles in the hallway. You are lying in a room that costs the same as the hallway gurney and experiencing something so different it doesn't feel like a variable. It feels like a category. At this level, the hospital didn't change. Your position inside it did. The building is the same. The country you're in is not. You have a number, one number. It belongs to one person, he answers. Tonight you call at 10:43 p.m. He answers on the 3rd ring. He asks you to describe what you're feeling. He listens for 90 seconds without interrupting. He says he's going to meet you. Not refer you. Meet you. He is at the hospital before you are. He has already spoken to the attending. He has already reviewed what's in your file. He introduces you to the team as his patient in a way that shifts the entire energy of the room before a word of your history has been spoken. You do not navigate the system tonight. You are navigated through it. Every test is explained before it happens. Every result is delivered directly to him. He translates everything into language that is precise but never cold. He sits with you at 1 a.m. while the imaging comes back, and he does not look at his phone once. You go home at 3 a.m. knowing exactly what is wrong, exactly what happens next, and exactly who is responsible for making sure it does. You have never felt that before in a hospital. That specific feeling, total account of yourself. At this level, you stop being a patient and start being a person with a physician. The word physician means something specific here that it never meant before. It means someone whose success is tied to yours. There is a floor in certain hospitals, private, unmarked from the lobby. You access it differently. The elevator requires a code or a key or someone who knows which button. The room looks nothing like a hospital room. There is no industrial smell. There is a window with a view. There is a chair that is an actual chair. There are meals. Tonight, you are not sick. Tonight, someone you love is. And because of who you are, the best specialist in the country is on a plane. Not tomorrow. Tonight. The team assembled around this bed represents decades of combined expertise organized specifically around this one case. Not a rotation. Not whoever is on call. Chosen people. Named people. You sit in the chair by the window. The city is dark below you. Somewhere in that darkness, someone is in a waiting room with a clipboard and a form with a question about their primary care physician. They are leaving it blank. They are sitting under the same fluorescent light in the same mustard-colored chair doing the same math in their head. Same illness. Different floor. You do not feel superior. You do not feel guilty. You feel something quieter and harder to name. The specific weight of knowing that the difference between this room and that waiting room is not medicine. It is not care. It is not competence. It is a number, and a number attached to a name, and a name that moves through a system that was never designed to be equal and never claimed to be. The best medical care in this country is not kept secret. It is just kept expensive. And expensive is the only door code that has ever mattered. Somewhere right now, it is 11:47 p.m. Someone is sitting on the edge of their bed deciding if the pain is real enough. It is. They will drive themselves. They will sit under the flat light. They will fill out the form and leave the question blank. They will wait. They will be moved through. They will get the bill in 6 to 8 weeks and feel the second wave of it. They will survive the night, but the night will cost them. The emergency room is the same building at every level. The medicine is the same science. The pain walking through the door is equally real, regardless of what's in the wallet behind it. The building doesn't change, only the floor you're taken to. And nobody tells you which one you're getting until you're already inside.